Okay, Luce was just saying that when she was 12, it was normal for her parents to discuss things like what you want to do at school and.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're 12, you have to choose in high school. So you go around town, or maybe to another town, but for me it was just around town, to all the open school days. And you
Was that open school days?
yeah, they're just presenting themselves on
Like an open house, you go in and
Yeah.
you see the school.
Yeah. And then you can talk to the teachers and stuff like that, and then you can decide which school you like.
In America, you couldn't choose a school. The school was assigned according to where you lived. So if you lived in, let's say, a certain part of town, a poor part of town, you went to the school in the poor part of town. If you lived in the rich part of town, you went to the school in the rich part of town. So people would literally move to that part of town so their kids could go to school there.
Yeah.
So this would basically keep the rich people all together. And then when the rich people wanted to move farther away from the poor people, they would have a whole new subdivision with a whole new school.
Yeah, but these programs you also have in Holland, because they can choose the school, but then people, maybe white people, they don't want their children in a class with like Moroccan people and Turkish people and stuff like that, because they're afraid that there's not enough time for their children, because there's so much time open for language lessons, because there are a lot of say some of these children, they're not good enough in the Dutch language, and then they decide to put the children in another school, in another part of town, for example, and then you have the same concentration of rich, blank, white people.
So but they don't have to move their house.
No, they don't have to move the house. No.
They just ride their bicycle a little bit farther.
This discussion in Holland, it is a problem, because we're like a mixed culture, so it would be perfect if every school is an example of this mixed culture. But what you see is you have white schools and black schools.
Okay, now let's jump over to school uniforms, because in like England, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, a lot of the Asian countries that were influenced by the British, I think, have or colonized or whatever, have school uniforms. What do you think about school uniforms? Because I know you don't have them in Holland.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a crazy thought for me. That you just, the school decide for you that you have to wear what they decide. I don't know even what they're there, but the thought about it is to have school uniforms.
Yeah, that everyone is the same.
Everybody is.
You cannot see them who have this.
What have you heard? Have you heard the reasons for school
Yeah,
uniforms?
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Everyone's the same, and there's no difference between poor or rich or anything.
Yes.
I was talking to somebody from England about this school uniform thing, and she said, "Oh, that's not true, but there's no difference between the rich and the poor." She said, because the more posh the school, the more posh the uniform. In other words, the more expensive.
Ah, yeah.
So you can tell immediately how rich somebody is
By the uniform.
because it has a nicer
So it
jacket,
doesn't
nicer.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it about the pride of the school, maybe? To show the pride because these are my students, so they wear my uniform, or I don't know.
Well, this gives me a good chance to tell you what I found out about this, because I didn't have any school uniforms, and I was really shocked when I went to Australia, thinking I saw all the kids in these school uniforms, and then later I asked a girl who was working for me on a woofing project together, and I asked her about the school uniforms, and basically the more we talked, the more I realized that it's marketing for the school. It's an image, because this was a private school, and her private school got money, obviously, and the school owner, basically the owner of the school, gets more money if he can charge more per student. He can charge more per student if the parents think it's a good school. So the image of the school is very, very important. So one thing you do is you maintain the appearance of the students to maintain the image of the school. And it's really just marketing. She told me that she was something called a prefect. A prefect is like student police. So let's say you don't have your shirt tucked in. She can come up and she can say, "Robert, tuck your shirt in." What'd you say? No way.
I just couldn't imagine that you cannot express yourself in your clothing and everything in school.
Yeah, and
I know this is going on around the world, but for me it's.
Yeah, and the other thing that gets me is that one of your classmates can tell you to tuck your shirt in.
Stupid.
Well, even in Holland, student has the right to strike from the school.
Yeah.
If they are not, if they think that the school's doing something not right, they can strike. They can also say, okay, we don't go to classes anymore. They can just sit down at the The square outside of the school. So we don't want. It was like even last August you have big student strikes because the school wants to raise the hours that you must be in school at minimum. Let's say you must be at school at minimum of 33 hours. Even if you don't have lessons, you must be there. And a lot of students that doesn't think that was right, because if you don't have lessons, why should you be in school? Just sitting in the classroom doing nothing. There's not even a teacher then. So they all went striking, and then that worked out. So
Wow, try that in America. The police will be there in 10 seconds.
Yeah. And the police is there, but you cannot do anything. It's just your right.
Yeah.
Okay. We're okay still. By the way, speaking of rights, I was talking to a friend of mine who tried to kill himself when he was like 13 or 14 years old because his parents were beating him, literally beating him. They were very religious, and one was a salesman for a tobacco company. And he said, I've realized that a 5-year-old has almost the same legal rights as a 15-year-old. And as I've looked at it, it's true, the rights don't change much. The problem is the needs change. And your needs are very different at 15 than 5. So this is something else I've written about, the difference between needs and rights. Like in America, they talk a lot about equal rights. Everywhere. Everybody's talking about equal rights, but our needs aren't equal. Like I was thinking a lot about the need for privacy lately. I come in a hostel, and the reason I'm working right now at 3 in the morning is because I need a quiet place, private, where I can really think, do my work, not be interrupted. And this morning I think somebody almost tried to steal one of my memory cards or something. I got it back, but I really need a place that's safe, that's quiet, and I have to be alone. And in high schools, typically, there isn't this place at all, and some people need it more than others, but everybody basically has the same right to everything in a high school. So if your rights are the same but your needs aren't, then somebody's going to suffer. And I've seen this, like if I need 3 glasses of water, but everybody gets a right to 2, but I need 3 or 4 or 5 maybe. I don't have a right to, but I have a need. Then you have a big problems in society. This is one of the things that I think is a problem in school, because like everybody gets this, I think you were saying this, like everybody gets the same amount of English, math, science, but everybody doesn't have the same interest, potential, talents, whatever. So we're trying to make people the same, but that's not natural.
That's true.
So okay.
Yeah, it is true, but I have to think more about it to give you an answer.
And this is one thing I want to do with my videos and my writings, make people think. Like today, I was looking at one of the videos I made where I took my shirt off and I walked into a mall with no shirt on. And in some places you can walk in the mall with no shirt, some you can't. Now in America you can't do hardly anything without shoes and a shirt. They have signs that say no shirt, no shoes, no service. You can't walk into almost any place and like.
You're always walking in malls without shoes.
Yes, we like that. In Holland you can do it, but I'm in countries where you cannot even walk without shirt on the streets when it's like 40 degrees outside.
See, when I was in Indonesia or Malaysia or Indonesia, it was so hot, and everybody told me you have to respect the culture, but I'm dying of heat, and I thought, what should I respect more, my natural needs or the cultural beliefs? So I took off my shirt, and I thought maybe somebody will yell at me, try to hit me or yell or something, I don't know, but actually I kept my shirt on my shoulder so I could put it on just in case somebody was like literally physically threatening me or something. But I learned how to say hot in Indonesian. So I would smile when they looked at me. I would just smile and say hot, hot, and most people in Indonesia would just smile back. So I didn't really have a problem with that. And then another time, in I think Malaysia, I was waiting for a train, and I was so hot, and I finally just took off my shirt, took my water bottle, and just poured it over my head. And this one guy, he walked around and he looked at me. He couldn't believe what I was doing. He didn't say anything, but he just looked at me. He'd never seen anything like this, an older Muslim guy. But what I want to do is try to open up the minds of young people to teach them things like if you're hot, cool off. It's natural, it's human, it's survival. And so I was thinking, like, in Ecuador one time I asked the students what they think about a teacher sitting on a desk. Now in Holland, would it be any problem if the teacher sat on the desk? Because in South America they think it's maybe not appropriate, it's disrespectful to the students or something to sit on a desk because they have to stand up. In Holland, do the students ever stand up when the teacher walks in?
No.
Oh, no.
They don't even bother, I guess.
Have you ever seen this?
No.
Not in real life, no.
No.
Because I walked into a school in Mexico, and everybody stands up.
Yeah, I had the same in Sri Lanka as well.
Did they say good morning, teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this
I couldn't even, because I was teaching there, I was working with handicapped people, and they couldn't even, I tried to explain them that my name was Luz, and please not teacher, but they couldn't, they just always teacher.
hang on just
I
one
really
second.
hated it.
You hated it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
like
like
a title, it's not my name, it's a title, and I don't need this title to work
It's
with.
like for me, I don't like if somebody says, "Hey, dude." It's impersonal.
Yeah.